Switching from baseball to football will go down as the greatest decision of Patrick Mahomes' life after becoming a Super Bowl champion, an NFL MVP, and the owner of the largest contract in professional sports history. But he wasn't always this superstar we see today. Here is the rise of Patrick Mahomes. Road to the NFL. Patrick Mahomes was born in Tyler, Texas, but spent the most of his childhood in White House, Texas, where he attended White House High School. He played multiple sports for the Wildcats and was well known around the state of Texas as a freakish athlete who could do it all. Baseball, basketball, football, whatever it was, he was the best. But when it came to football, he was downright special. When he managed to amass 5,567 total yards and 65 total touchdowns in his senior season alone. And to back up the claim of him being the best at all sports, he threw a 16-strike no-hitter that following baseball season, which ultimately led to him being drafted in the 37th round of the 2014 MLB draft by the Detroit Tigers. He ultimately decided not to sign with the Tigers and chose to stay close to home and commit to Texas Tech University to play both football and baseball. In college, it was very clear to Patrick that he would eventually have to choose between the two sports, as the dedication needed to be a Division I quarterback would affect his baseball schedule. But he couldn't bring himself to give up on the sport he was taught to love so much by his father without giving it a shot in college. So he remained on the team, but he didn't see the field much as his play slipped due to focusing on football. And because of giving his attention to football, his freshman season went pretty good, even though he spent most of the year as a backup. But when his name was called, he was always ready. For example, he accounted for nearly 600 yards, 6 touchdowns, and just 1 interception against Baylor as the starter due to injuries, giving everyone a glimpse of things to come. His sophomore season saw him earn the starting job from the jump, and he quickly showed the world that he meant business. In the first game of the season, he threw for 425 yards and 4 touchdowns. Mahomes then followed up this performance with a 361-yard outing against UTEP in a 392-yard game against TCU. He dominated his way through the rest of the season, as you could probably imagine, and wound up ending with 4,653 yards, 36 touchdowns, and only 15 interceptions. At the start of Mahomes' junior season, he officially removed himself from baseball after serving as a relief pitcher for the majority of his college career and only appeared in a handful of games. But while it was sad for him to give up on baseball, the ability to focus on football allowed him to take his game on the gridiron to new heights. He broke a number of records this year, including the NCAA record with 819 total yards of offense in that legendary game against Baker Mayfield in Oklahoma, the same game that he threw for 734 yards while also setting a record with 87 passing attempts. Fast forward to the end of the season, where he led the country with 5,312 total yards of offense and 53 total touchdowns. Now, after that junior year, it really catapulted him up the NFL draft boards, from a mid-round selection to a guy that scouts didn't see falling past the second round. Fast forward to the NFL Combine, where Mahomes dominated the passing drills and went out to visit a number of teams in the pre-draft process. And early on, it was clear that teams wanted him on their roster, but it wasn't known where he would go. Well, that was until the Kansas City Chiefs traded up to the number 10 overall selection to grab Mahomes, making him their first quarterback drafted in the first round since 1983. The rise. Mahomes' rookie year in the NFL was uneventful, yet it was probably the best thing for him. The Chiefs still had Alex Smith at the time and were a playoff team with him at the helm, but fans were clamoring to see what big-armed Mahomes could do. Kansas City decided to allow Mahomes time to learn from Smith throughout the first 16 games of the season, before finally giving him a start in Week 17 against the Denver Broncos. He started this game and threw for 284 yards and an interception, leading the Chiefs to a victory. So it was a great start to his young career, and for the remainder of the year, he failed to touch the field. But don't worry, the best was yet to come. The Chiefs apparently loved what they saw out of Patrick during practice, and in that one game he played extensively because they traded Alex Smith away during the offseason. He was sent over to the Washington Redskins, now known as the Washington Commanders, and Mahomes saw a promotion come his way. Now leading the charge for the Chiefs with a plethora of generational weapons, he was able to throw for 326 yards and 6 touchdowns during a win over the Pittsburgh Pittsburgh Steelers, breaking an NFL record for the most touchdown passes by a quarterback in their first 3 career games. He was also named the consecutive AFC Offensive Player of the Week after this game, something no quarterback has accomplished to start a season since Tom Brady back in 2011. Again, this was just in his first 3 career starts. Patrick was quickly establishing himself as a flat-out superstar and one of the top quarterbacks in the entire league. He continued to dominate everybody that stood in his way as the Chiefs rode through opponent after opponent to finish the regular season 12-4, claiming their 3rd straight AFC West title. Mahomes himself was able to throw for over 5,000 yards and over 50 touchdowns this year, becoming the 2nd quarterback to do that in NFL history. The first was Peyton Manning, and at this stage in the year, fans were a bit anxious to see how Mahomes could perform in the postseason. I mean, everybody already thought that this guy was a generational player, but if he could prove himself on the biggest stage, then it would just cement it. In his playoff debut, he squared off against the Indianapolis Colts in the divisional round, and this game went exactly as everyone had imagined, when Mahomes threw for 278 yards en route to a 31-13 victory to advance to the AFC Championship game against the New England Patriots and the GOAT. And if it weren't for a foolish defensive penalty, the Chiefs would have likely won that game and gone to the Super Bowl. However, that penalty set them back and sent the game into overtime. And you already know anytime Brady gets the ball with a chance to end the game, it's ended. And after being defeated by the Patriots, Patrick Mahomes was awarded with the 2018 NFL MVP trophy at the end of the season to become the first Kansas City Chiefs player to be named the league MVP. After such an amazing season, everyone was wondering what he could do to top it, placing unreal expectations upon his shoulders. But Mahomes never shied away from them. Instead, he exceeded their expectations, winning Offensive Player of the Month to start off the year, all while leading the Chiefs to an undefeated 4-0 record. He sadly dislocated his patella in Week 7 and was forced to miss 2 games before returning in Week 10 against the Tennessee Titans. In this game, he threw for 446 yards and 3 touchdowns to make up for all the time he had missed, but sadly, they were still defeated 32-35. And after this game, he wasn't 100% throughout the remainder of the season, but he still played great, passing for 4,031 yards, 26 touchdowns, and just 5 interceptions. The Chiefs themselves had another 12-4 season, winning their division and receiving a first-round bye for the playoffs. In the playoffs, Mahomes and the Chiefs were blitzed by the Houston Texans in the divisional round and found themselves down 24-0 in the first half, but Mahomes caught fire and threw touchdown after touchdown as the Kansas City Chiefs scored 41 unanswered points and defeated the lifeless Texans 51-31. Mahomes had 5 touchdowns on the night and had just accomplished one of the greatest feats in playoff history. The following week, they marched into the AFC Championship for the 2nd straight year, this time against the Tennessee Titans, who, if you remember, defeated them earlier in the year. And just like that Texans game the week prior, they fell behind again, this time 17-7. They never gave up though, and Mahomes helped them turn it around again to win 35-24. This victory led the Chiefs into the Super Bowl for the first time since 1970, and Mahomes was up for the challenge against the San Francisco 49ers, where he threw for 286 yards and 2 touchdowns, on top of a rushing touchdown to win his first Super Bowl. And after the game, he was awarded the Super Bowl MVP trophy, becoming the 3rd youngest player in league history to receive the award. Generational talent. After winning his first Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes signed a whopping 10-year, $477 million contract, the richest in professional sports history. And now the biggest and brightest star in the NFL, Mahomes and the Chiefs once again flew out of the gate strong. He went on to surpass 10,000 career passing yards and did so in just 34 games, the fastest of all time. He put up numerous 400-plus yard performances, and the Chiefs yet again locked up home field advantage throughout the postseason. Patrick passed for 4,740 yards, 38 touchdowns, and just 6 interceptions in 2020, and was looking to win back-to-back Super Bowls. In the divisional round game against the Cleveland Browns, he was forced to leave in the 3rd quarter due to a concussion, but the Chiefs still managed to pull out a win despite a late game rally from Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns. Mahomes returned the following week as the Chiefs hosted the AFC Championship for the 3rd straight year, this time against the Buffalo Bills, and Mahomes went off. He threw for 325 yards and 3 touchdowns to lead the Chiefs to a dominant 38-24 victory to advance to their 2nd consecutive consecutive Super Bowl. This time, they were playing against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. For some reason, it just wasn't their night. Mahomes managed 270 yards and 2 interceptions and was consistently running for his life in the backfield. The Chiefs were missing multiple offensive linemen, and the Buccaneers' defensive line really came to play. To put it into perspective, he saw pressure in his face on 29 of his 56 total dropbacks and was sacked 3 times, and despite the loss, Mahomes proved that he belonged in that game. Most recently, we have the 2021 season. Mahomes had a rough start to the season with the Chiefs. They weren't performing like everybody had become accustomed to, and it got fans worried. But in the second half of the season, they managed to complete a 180-degree turnaround as they ripped through opponents to earn another playoff berth. Mahomes had thrown for 4,839 yards, 37 touchdowns, and just 13 interceptions, while leading his team to a 12-5 record. In the playoffs, Kansas City hosted the Pittsburgh Steelers in the wildcard round and dominated them 42-21 in a farewell game for Big Ben behind Mahomes' 404 passing yards. The following week, they just barely beat the Buffalo Bills in overtime during the divisional round in one of the greatest games of recent memory. Mahomes had 378 yards and 3 touchdowns to go along with a rushing touchdown and did the impossible when he led a scoring drive to send the game into overtime despite being down 3 points with only 13 seconds left and no timeouts. After the game, Mahomes was awarded the nickname Grim Reaper after a mic'd up clip of him and Andy Reid surfaced of the coach telling his quarterback, when things look grim, be the Grim Reaper. So Chiefs, led by the Grim Reaper, went on to face the Cincinnati Bengals in their 4th straight AFC championship, and sadly, Cincinnati won that game in overtime thanks to a late game interception thrown by Mahomes. Overall, you can definitely see why Mahomes is heralded as the baby GOAT just a couple of seasons into his career. Since becoming a full-time starter, he has yet to not make the AFC title game. Will Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs make the AFC championship this season? Thank you all for watching, and I'm out.